He found a strange wish-granting machine at the amusement park. It didn't have any electricity, but it worked fine. Out of curiosity, George put a coin in. He made a wish on the machine.
Wish I were big.
And the next thing he knew, the puppet swallowed the coin in its mouth. A card was spat out. It said, "Your wish has been granted." George didn't take the card seriously. He thought it was just a prank by some boring person. But little did he realize the amazing journey he was about to embark on. At night, the winds blew, the thunder and lightning. George tossed and turned in his bed. His body began to change. In the morning, he went to the bathroom. He found a stranger in the mirror. He couldn't believe his wish had come true. He was 12 years old, but suddenly he was 10 years old. George took some clothes from his father's wardrobe. He got dressed and rushed out of the house. He wanted to find the wishing machine from last night and change himself back. But when he arrived on his bike, all he saw was a pile of rubbish. George had no choice but to return home again, hoping his mother would believe he was George. He said his birthday was the 3rd of November. He got a 60 on his latest test.
My baseball team is called the Dukes. I made this for you.
Hearing that the stranger knew everything about her son, the mother thought he must have kidnapped George.
Bastard, what did you do to my son? I am your son, Mom. Where is my child? Where is my son?
And when she saw this, George had to run away. He went to the school and found Billy. Billy was his best friend. But apparently, Billy didn't believe him either.
I'm your best friend. Please, you can't believe me. I'll prove it to you, right?
Billy begged George not to hurt him. He shook the door as hard as he could to get away.
Oh, I know I don't look like myself, okay? But something really strange happened, and I'm really scared. I need you to help me, my best friend.
George wanted Billy to believe him. He sang a song that only the two of them knew.
Oh. The space goes down, down, baby, down, down the roller coaster. Sweet, sweet, baby, sweet, sweet, don't let me go. Just get a biscuit, ice cream, soda, ooh, Charlie.
And finally Billy believed George.
Josh?
George wanted Billy to help him. Now he didn't know where to go. Billy took a big bag of his father's clothes from his house. They met at an old pipeline. Billy suggested that George go into town. He might find a wishing machine to make him a boy again. Then they went to the station together. Billy gave George all his pocket money. At night they went into the city. Billy took George to a rundown hotel. He told George to stay here for the time being. He had to be home by 10 o'clock. Billy promised George he'd meet him the next morning.
Find that Zoltar thing before you're not, okay? Just one night. Alright?
Alright.
Good.
After Billy left, George locked the door behind him. It was the first time in his life he'd spent the night away from home. He was terrified by the noise of the argument next door. He was still a boy of 12, faced with the strangeness of his surroundings. George put a pillow over his ears. Curled up in bed, he cried out for his mom. The next day Billy found George. They asked around about the wishing machine, but in the end, they came up empty-handed. A good Samaritan told them to contact the Department of Consumer Affairs. They should be able to find out who runs the amusement park. They were told to fill out a form. They'll get the results in a month and a half. And that's what got George so upset. He didn't know how he was going to get through the month and a half. Billy started looking for jobs for him in the papers. It's good to be a grown-up. Let's have a taste of the grown-up world. Eventually, they decided to interview for a job at a toy company. George lied on his CV about being a graduate of a prestigious university, and that he had 4 years of experience working for a toy company. The interviewer said that his relative had graduated from there. He was very impressed with George. He hired him right away. George was put to work in the office. He was responsible for entering customer information into the computer. On his first day, he was full of energy, but a colleague warned him to slow down. The work here was simple and boring. If the boss sees how quickly they finish their work, he'll think there are too many people working in this job. Maybe George will be laid off soon, so that his mother wouldn't worry. George called home. He told his mother that George was safe and would be back with her soon. He'd be back with her soon. She warned him that if he touched a hair on his son's head, he would go to the police. This gave George a strong sense of his mother's love. After work, George stays at the hotel and watches TV. Sandwich biscuits. He only eats the center. He threw the biscuits away. He was no longer afraid of the neighbors' arguments. Soon a month had passed. George got his first paycheck. It was only $187, but for a 12-year-old, it was a lot of money. It was a check. George and Billy went to the bank and cashed it. They bought a bunch of goodies to celebrate at the hotel. It was a moment when George finally felt the joy of adulthood. No wonder mom and dad were never picky about what they ate. They only buy what they like to eat. On the weekend, George went to the company's toy store. It's a paradise for children. He's a child at heart, and he's just letting himself go. People were looking at George funny. They think he's not right in the head. But George was having a great time. He didn't give a damn what anyone thought, as he pretended to fall to the ground and convulse. The boss of the company came by.
You work for me, don't you?
Yes,
The owner said he came here every weekend to get feedback from the kids about the toys. That's the kind of data you don't see in marketing reports. They walked and talked. The owner asks George how the toys are. George knows everything about toys. He spoke from his own experience. He went on and on about the shortcomings and weaknesses of the toys. The owner was very impressed with his summary. At that moment, they came to an in-ground piano. George happily played it with his feet. The owner joined in. Customers stopped to watch as the two finished a song together. The onlookers gave them a round of applause. The boss thought George was a rare talent. He was too good to sit in an office and type, so he promoted him to vice president of creative. Every day, his job was to experience the company's products and then come up with ideas to improve them. George was given his own office and a secretary to serve him tea and water. Billy was envious of his life. George was on his way to the top. The creative director was not happy about it. He felt threatened by George's promotion.